It's a new year, but the fentanyl crisis continues unabated. In 2023, the overdose death rate topped 112,000 for the first time ever, according to the CDC. And while some of those deaths are among hardcore addicts, the innocent victims of counterfeit pills are growing. Last year, the DEA said more than 60% of the fentanyl-laced counterfeit pills it tested contained a potentially lethal dose. Hundreds of millions of U.S. dollars are going to battle the influx of fentanyl, but so far with little success. That leaves family members of the victims to try alternate methods of battling the scourge. They're working to change the laws and change the easy social media access that has led to so many deaths. A lawsuit against Snapchat brought by family members of more than 60 fentanyl overdose victims is now moving forward in the courts. And we look at how damaging social media in general can be for young people and whether it can actually be addicting. Fox 11 News in Depth starts right now. Hello, everyone. I'm Hal Eisner, and this is Fox 11 News in Depth. We've been discussing the fallout from the fentanyl epidemic for several years now, and that toll just keeps getting grimmer and grimmer. In fact, a recent New England Journal of Medicine article said 22 teens died every week in the year 2022. But the legal battle has now moved into the social media realm as a judge has allowed a lawsuit against the platform Snapchat to go forward. Now, this is an interesting tactic because instead of directly battling the suppliers of the drugs, it addresses the communication used to secure those drugs. Joining us now to talk about the battle against this scourge are some parents on the front lines. They have all lost a child to a fentanyl-laced counterfeit pill. Sam Chapman lost his son Sammy in 2021. Perla Mendoza, founder of Project Eli, lost her son Daniel Elijah. The name Project Eli comes from that. That happened in 2020. And Matt Capilouto, who runs druginducedhomicide.org, lost his daughter Alexandra in 2019, all of this due to fentanyl poisoning. Now, all three of you are involved in this lawsuit, right, Sam?
That's right. 65 families are suing Snap Inc. for faulty design features that led to the death of our children.
And why take this to court?
Because that's the only way that they'll change their design. So far, they get rewarded for as many users as possible by Wall Street every quarter. And if they protect our children, the drug dealers may go off of their platform. Some kids may go off of their platform. Those numbers will go down. So we want it to be safe to go on Snapchat. That's what we're suing.
And just to be clear, because it's really important as we embark on this conversation, that we did reach out to Snapchat, and they say that the company can't really comment because it's in litigation. But they said, while we are committed to advancing our efforts to stop drug dealers from engaging in illegal activity on Snapchat, we believe the plaintiff's allegations are both legally and factually flawed and will continue to defend that position in court. So, Perla, your thoughts after hearing what they said and the desire to move forward in the courts?
I'm looking forward to this battle. I know it's not something that's going to be resolved quickly, but I want them to do everything possible to make that app safe for their users.
Matt, you know, as we talk about this, what are your feelings about some of these features that they have that you're going after?
Well, you know, let me say this. There's many links to the chain in this fentanyl epidemic, and Snapchat basically provides a modern-day storefront for drug dealers. And my biggest issue is Snapchat facilitates the disappearance of criminal activity and evidence, which basically allows these drug dealers to operate unabated. What I don't understand is just like the airline industry, if there's a problem with a plane, those planes are grounded. Social media needs to be held accountable to the same exact thing. When we have a problem where teenagers are buying arguably the world's deadliest drug ever to exist, and they're dying instantly, and this drug, this poison, as I like to call it, is so easily accessible on Snapchat, we need to say, hey, let's put this to a halt until we get this figured out. So teenagers and young people, and really anybody, can't easily go on this platform and purchase this poison.
Matt, do you think, though, that if there hadn't been a social media platform, that this would not have become as big a problem as it's become?
Oh, I absolutely, without a doubt, know social media has added fuel to the fire. It's literally, it's kind of cliche at this point, but it's true. You can get this drug delivered to your doorstep as easy, or if not easier, than ordering a pizza these days. And if this was any other deadly chemical, anthrax to say, there would be an outcry like crazy. And arguably, this is every bit as deadly, if not more deadly. Look, it's killing, as we just announced, 22 young teenagers each and every week, 300 people a day across this country. And where's the outcry? I feel like America's gotten to the point where we're accepting this. And, I heard a good term, that which we tolerate becomes the norm. Why in the hell are we tolerating this?
What's clear is that parents are driving this conversation. For all the stories that I've done over these past few years, it is the parents who are out on the front line. Arguably, it gives purpose. It gives meaning to a life that's been damaged and destroyed by the traumatic loss of a child. But it is you guys that are driving the conversation.
I agree. We've been sort of alone in this, and it's because there was a lot of ignorance out there about the dangers of social media and about fentanyl in general. So when it happened to us, we started going on television. I know all of the people here have been spreading the message in schools and any way we can. And the DEA has also been very helpful, but our government is causing the problem. The way things happen with China and the cartels and not regulating social media, parents are alone. We just have to warn each other and hope that education saves some children so that they don't have to go through what we've been through.
Perla, you went through a tough go here, as did the other parents. And yeah, this happened for you back in 2020, right?
Yes.
It's just like yesterday, though, isn't it?
It feels like it. There's times where, I feel like it just happened, the same day, really.
The grief, the emotion is still overwhelming.
Definitely. It's hard. I mean, it's the hardest thing I've ever had to go through. It's the hardest thing I've ever experienced other parents go through. And sites like Snapchat, give access to our kids a playground.
Right.
That we try so hard to keep them from.
I want to ask another thing here before we run out of time. Another social media development. Meta said this week that they are going to take Facebook and Instagram, and they're going to hide posts about suicide, about self-harm, and about eating disorders from teenagers. And on top of that, when those words are typed into a search box, they're going to, instead of providing that, they're going to provide experts that can help young people with that. Sam, you think that's a good idea?
I think that's a wonderful idea. I wish they'd gone further, and there's a lot further to go. Lightning round, what about you?
I think it's a great idea. It's a step in the right direction, but there's still a lot more work that needs to be done. I
was a little surprised, though, that they didn't, Matt, go for drugs in that message, or at least they haven't yet. Are they not going far enough?
Well, I think part of the problem is right now they're left to police themselves. And we have to have independent third-party policing of social media for us to have real effective reform. If they're just left to police themselves, I think they're going to try to do good, but it's not going to be as far as they can go.
All right, Matt, Perla, Sam, thank you all very much. Coming up next on Fox 11 News in Depth, we're going to continue this conversation. We're going to continue talking about the impact of social media when it comes to fentanyl and what parents are doing about it, and what the DEA has been doing about it, and that'll be next. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Fox 11 News in Depth. I'm Hal Eisner. Parents have been at the forefront of the fentanyl fight, but so has the DEA. Until recently, Bill Bodner has been the special agent in charge of the Los Angeles office of the DEA. He's been on this show many times, and now he's the managing director of Revilo Investigations and Consulting. And what is that agency exactly?
We
Private
do
business.
private business investigations and consulting work in the drug space and all investigative space.
And you spend a lot of time in that drug space dealing with fighting. And you know, you have a lot you can probably share here. So let's call this a post-job exit interview. But, you know, when we talked before, you were always reporting to somebody else in the DEA, and now you're not.
Right.
Do you feel the DEA has done a good job dealing with fentanyl?
Yeah, I think the men and women of DEA have done a great job dealing with fentanyl. They were there from day one, and they've especially engaged with the families who have been victimized. And they showed that drug trafficking is not a victimless crime. Would I like to see this administration do more in some places? Absolutely. I think, you know, earlier you spoke about New England Journal of Medicine report about teenage overdose. What you didn't mention is that the 2 counties with the greatest number of teenage overdoses, our very own Los Angeles County and Maricopa County in Arizona. Why is that? In my estimation, 65%, give or take, of the fentanyl in the United States passes through one of those 2 counties. This administration needs to surge resources to those 2 counties. That's law enforcement people, and that's also prosecutors to charge crime.
You'd like to see more done. So is it that enough has not been done that could have been done by the DEA?
With more resources. There needs to be a resource surge because we know that the harm that's going throughout the United States is passing through these 2 choke points. We could attack that at the source, so to speak, and really make a big impact. The other thing that was frustrating to everyone in DEA was December of 2022, Attorney General Garland put out a memo asking prosecutors not to file minimum mandatory drug cases when possible. That's probably not the right move, in my opinion, in the middle of the biggest drug crisis this country has known.
You on the side have told me that there are things you are critical about. What are they?
Just how resources are allocated. That's very simple. I mean, we need to do a better job. And when I say we, the U.S. government needs to do a better job of allocating resources to where the fight is.
If there's something you wanted to do that you could have done, but you couldn't do it because you were handcuffed, what would that have been?
It would have been more people, focus a little more on social media, and really attack the wholesale level of the drug supply chain and get those wholesale people prosecuted. They're the ones bringing in 1 million fentanyl doses at a time.
And what has been the impact of the moms and the dads out there, like Sam and Perla and Matt? What has been the impact on the DEA?
Well, the impact in general has been they have saved lives, right? They have saved lives. The impact on the DEA has been significant because they've shown that this is not a victimless crime. Drug trafficking hurts people every day, kills people every day. The men and women of DEA are the people that are out there trying to put a stop to that. And as we've seen it kind of migrate online and onto social media, we now need to look at that space and say it's time to redo Section 230 to make it keep pace.
So let's look at that space, because now we talked about Meta taking action on Facebook and Instagram to try to hide things like suicide and self-harm and eating disorders from teens and provide them with expert information. Good idea?
Good idea. A lot more needs to be done. We need to focus on the drug space. Drug-caused death, the #1 cause of death for people in that age group. How can we not look at where they're getting the drugs and focus our attention there? I saw a study, Hal, that said 75% of teenagers who admit drug use get their drugs on social media.
75%?
75%. Now, I don't know, that was in the UK. I don't suspect that the trends in this country will be much different, though.
But 75% in a study in Britain.
Correct. Correct.
Not here.
Correct.
But your speculation, your sense of it is, from having worked in this space, is it's pretty high.
It's pretty high, and it grew during COVID, during the pandemic, when everyone was isolated, and everyone relied on social media a lot more, and it hasn't gone back down.
We have less than a minute. Is this Snapchat lawsuit the route to go to try to make a difference?
Yes, it's a groundbreaking lawsuit. It's going to be a day of reckoning, in my opinion, for social media platforms, for all of them. It's the algorithm, it's the artificial intelligence. That's what needs to be addressed.
Artificial intelligence?
Yeah, yes.
Because?
The artificial intelligence is the one making these connections. People are not searching for drug content. Artificial intelligence is making...
AI is making the connection.
AI is making the connection. People don't realize that.
All right, Bill Bodner, formerly with the DEA, currently with Revilo. And good to see you. Always good to see you. Coming up next on Fox 11 News In Depth, we delve further into the effect that social media has had on adolescents and teenagers and how parents can can help protect their kids from the consequences. We'll be right back. Don't go away. Welcome back to Fox 11 News in Depth. We've been discussing the impact of Snapchat and other social media apps on how drug dealing is done these days. And, we want to talk about, the impact of social media. And as parents, what can parents do to help their young people? I want to bring in Michelle Nean. Dr. Nean is from the Chicago School of Professional Psychology. And you've been kind of listening along, Dr. Nean. Good to have you here. But we talked about this advance from Meta, holding things like suicide posts and self-harm posts and eating disorder posts from teenagers and providing in the search box information. If you write in suicide, they're going to give you suicide help information. Well, what do you think of this announcement from Meta?
Well, first of all, great to be here with you on this crucial issue, Hal. I celebrate it as a parent of two boys, myself, one of which is still a teenager, and also as a clinical psychologist. And the reality is, the reason behind my response is that we are increasingly becoming aware of the negative mental health issues that are associated with teens' excessive use of social media. And that includes anxiety, depression, substance use. And because we know much more now about how social media actually works with the algorithms and how it targets a teen's use based on their engagement with social media, if a teen goes to look at content in social media that's related to anxiety, depression, substance use, thoughts of suicide, and so on, we now know that they're much more likely to receive even more of that information. And the reality is we have to come together. Everybody has a responsibility when it comes to teens' well-being, and this is a great step in the right direction.
Do you think this step, though, should have come a long time ago?
Well, for sure. Yeah, for sure. The conversation about social media has been on the table for a very long time. We don't currently classify social media as an addiction, but it has been pinned by the American Psychiatric Association as just that. The symptoms are very similar. Certainly the consequences are very similar to other addictions. And now we have a lot of teenagers out there that are excessively using social media to the point of addiction. And we're in an awful lot of cleanup and management mode, both as parents and as professionals.
A Pew Research study shows that teens say they use social media, and this is a quote here, almost constantly. Almost constantly. What kind of problems could that be causing for our kids?
A whole bunch, Hal. So when you start talking about addiction, you're talking about a compulsive use of social media that starts interfering with the teens' everyday life, their relationships, their responsibilities, their work, which for them is their academics. So what we're seeing here, we're seeing sleep disturbance because there's nonstop scrolling way into the night. As I mentioned already, we're seeing a major uptick in mental health issues. We're seeing body image issues because social media feeds most of the time nothing but perfection and this false sense of what should be. We're seeing privacy issues. Most teens are not aware of the consequences, short and long term, of their digital footprint. We're seeing safety issues. We're seeing exposure to negative content, inaccurate content, extremist ideas, the whole thing. And we're seeing it in those categories: relationships, day-by-day life, and academic performance.
And there's bullying, and there's sexual blackmail, and there's all kinds of other risks. As we go back to what we talked about a moment ago with regard to the Meta announcement that has to do with suicide and self-harm and eating disorders, why not get into all this other stuff? It seems like it's somewhat limited. What's your thought on that?
I believe firmly, and I say this again as a parent and as a psychologist, that you're right, Hal, and we have a responsibility to get in there and look at it from every and all direction. We need to look at technology, at social media, what's happening in the schools, what's happening in the homes, what's happening amongst the peers. Get in it, accept that it's a problem. It's gotten out of hand now, and we're too late. Let's get in it and examine it from all ends.
We like to think of our kids as being responsible. Do we think that adolescents are mature enough to navigate these sort of waters?
Nope. And here's why. Adolescents are at that stage of their development, their brain development, their social development, their emotional development, where they crave social interaction. They crave feedback from their peers. And yet the reality is their prefrontal cortex don't develop for 15 or 20 years after their teenage years. And that prefrontal cortex, Hal, is so important because it's through the development of the prefrontal cortex that we manage risks and we understand the consequences of behavior. The very nature of adolescence is that it's like learning to ride a bike and everything else that they have to learn. They have to learn how to navigate very difficult situations, negative behaviors, dangerous behaviors. But there is a dopamine rush for all of us with social media and for our teens as well. It is a feedback cycle that addicts you to the scrolling, the variable content, the fun content. It's colorful, it's musical, and so on. And that's what their stage of development pulls them to engage in. They're not yet developed enough to understand the other parts that we do as adults.
What is the most important advice in 20 seconds that you'd like to give everybody out there watching?
Well, first of all, parents, be parents. Our jobs are to not be friends with our kids, be parents. Schools, be schools. Know that this is an important issue. Social media platforms, step up and engage with all of us and help us keep our teenagers and our young children safe. Tech companies, step up, that we have to do this together. Lastly, Hal, for parents that are growingly worried about their children's excessive use of social media, step in, don't let it go, get professional help with a psychologist or a counselor.
Dr. Michelle Nean, thanks so much. Fox 11 News in Depth will continue right after this break. That's it for this week's Fox 11 News in Depth. Thanks so much for joining us. Have a great week, everybody. We'll see you next time.